there's always a player in the tournament that is just like, okay, either we saw them coming or they just take over the tournament. I would argue that last year it was Haley Jones of Stanford. She clearly was the best player, in my opinion, in the tournament, and of course, she helped Stanford get to the national championship and ultimately win. Who do you think in this year's, of course, pool could be that player that we talk and say either they may not even have to, of course, lead their team to the championship, but who is the player that we're going to be talking about, in your opinion, when it's all said and done this year, as far as that they were the player of the tournament?
Hmm. I would think Aaliyah Boston would have to be in that conversation. She's been tough for people all year, a double machine. But maturity in her game and her body, the way that she approached it, like she wanted to get better and she is better, like hands down. You see different stories about her and how she changed her eating habits. She lost this much in weight and gained this in muscle mass, like a lot of different things like that. And I think in that game they lose, like to me, it doesn't come down to Aaliyah Boston. There is a lot of different things, but who's will she be that leader for the team that they need, as far as when that fourth quarter is starting to look shaky, or when the third is like we're not playing our best basketball? Can she be that? So I think from a scoring standpoint, from a rebounding standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, blocking shots, being the person who can like stand her ground. She's never really a player who's in foul trouble. Like you have to worry about that. Like she's smart.
Yeah.
I would think it would be Aaliyah Boston.
I agree. I think that I mean she's been arguably the best player in the entire season. I
Yeah.
guess my sleeper pick of a player could be was it Naz Hillman from Michigan?
Yeah, from
Naz
Michigan.
Hillman.
Yeah. She's a beast too. And she gives post players a run for their money because she can score it in a different way. She has a mid-range game as well, and she can create her own shot. So I think that sort of gives her an advantage as a post player too. But a lot of the offense does run through her, and she's relied on to do a lot. So what does that look like in a tournament? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. The only other player I can kind of think of that the success of their team, in my I'm not gonna say solely on them, but mainly on them, is Shakira Austin.
Shakira Austin. I was thinking that. I was like, I know that's who he's about to say.
and,
Yeah.
and while I don't, I mean, clearly Ole Miss is a good team, and even you said earlier they could be on, spoiler alert, from some point. I do think that they go as far as she takes them, because I mean, she's 6'5". She's pretty much the centerpiece of that offense, of that team in general. So I think she can. Well, of course, she's not as offensively gifted as Haley Jones is, but I think that when it's all said and done, whether they go far or not, she will be a big part of them either advancing or not advancing. So, um,
Yeah, 100%. I love Shakira Austin's game, and I think where Ole Miss runs into some problems is their consistency of their guards, not necessarily their post players. So I'm like, man, she's leaving this year. Like, who do you replace with that so you can continue to be in the conversation? Because Coach Yo has done a phenomenal job with that group and bringing kids to Ole Miss in the first place. Like, they haven't been on the map talked about in years. So you're able to land somebody like Shakira Austin who can score around the bucket. She's trying to expand her range a little bit. She runs the floor really well. One of her problems is, though, she is a player who fouls and could potentially see herself on the bench. So is she going to be smart for her team and like learn when to let some things go? Um, and I wouldn't say conditioning, so to speak, but she's one of those post players that, yes, she runs the floor well, but I don't think she gets up and down
yeah.
as quickly as some of the other
Mhm.
bigger players, post forwards around the country who are considered like your best. She's more of like a traditional five. I'll say that. Um, and she doesn't pose as much athleticism as like a Melissa Smith.
Yeah.
So I would say those are the difference makers. But I'm definitely big on Shakira Austin and her game. I think Ole Miss will have to really rely on their guards to be able to get her passes in there cleanly,
Yeah.
and then also where can they pick up the scoring load and stuff like that where when Shakira can't.